Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. Right now you're hearing music made with my new free Ableton Live pack called Hainbach Isolation Instruments. And all of these sounds are made with samples created by my guest today, Hainbach. Hainbach released a set of samples from all of his really cool, crazy gear called Isolation Loops, and it's free on his Bandcamp. That's hainbach.bandcamp.com. And these instruments were all made using little tiny samples of those sounds. And it's just a little way to show you what's possible with these isolation loops and give you some fun instruments to play with. There's 3 different instruments, and there's also 2 audio effect racks that were inspired by my conversation with Hainbach. So head over to brianfunk.com and download free Ableton Live pack number 195, Hainbach Isolation Instruments. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Funk, and this is the show about all things making music. And on today's show, I have a very special guest. I have Hainbach in the studio, or in the Zoom studio anyway. He's coming in from Berlin, correct?
Yes, right? Berlin, Neukölln.
And Hainbach's work is so fun. It's so interesting, all the gear you have, and so much to dig into. We're going to get into all that right now, but we'll just say hello. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. It's it's a holiday here. It's Easter. Yeah. So things are a little more relaxed, and so no homeschooling over this weekend, which is a burden taken off, which is kind of good. But so it's been relaxed 2 days.
Yeah, we celebrated Easter yesterday. And it was a strange one because we drove to my wife's grandmother's place and just kind of waved at her out the window, said hello, and then did a couple calls and a FaceTime or two. And, I did orchestrate a little Easter egg hunt for my wife. That it was kind of fun. We don't have kids, we have dogs, but it's just to keep it going,
Of course.
I think that was important right now.
Yeah, it's a kind of thing like I usually would be like in the Black Forest where I'm originally from, visiting my mother, and that we can't do. Yeah. So basically, we're probably not going to be able to visit her all year until there's like a thingy, that the vaccine and stuff like that. But luckily, like one thing that is here, like our house is really like we've got basically the aunt of my wife is directly here. So it's and the house itself has like many friends that are living here. So it's all really close by it because like stuff like I could do a live stream with my visual artist and we just threw the cable from balcony to balcony and that worked fine.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you can isolate, but you are already together, and that's kind of nice. And for the kids, of course, this is all like very strange.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. It's strange for everybody, really.
Yeah.
But I think some cool stuff is happening, as a result. I like to try to keep us on the bright side,
Yeah, of course.
For one, I think I want to tell everyone to go check out your Isolation Loops sample pack, which is super cool. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, like to me, like when I see your work, you have all of these crazy gadgets, things I've never heard of sometimes. And you also have this just fun way of kind of exploring and obviously this stuff really well, but every time you approach it, it feels as if you have these like almost like a beginner set of eyes where you're just happy to go into it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I learned like from just this beginner's eyes. For me, every time I get something new, I put the camera on because I know there's like moments that you can't capture again because once you know it, and it feels more exciting for the whole medium of trying to talk about experimental music techniques and gear on video. You need to. It's more fun if you're in the moment with me discovering that thing than when I'm just like referencing what I've learned.
Right.
So it's just makes different tape. It's just a tiny difference. I had to learn that because I come from an academic background in that regard, and I'm used to like, okay, now do my research, and then I present. So this is a technique I've been using this very long time. This has been used since this was the first person who used it.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of like the original like mindset that I had for these things, but that changed especially through my work with other people. Simon again, for example, who goes into this, and I think, oh, this is this working out loud thing. I think that's the thing that you're doing there, or that I'm doing there, is really more fun, and I like to see that with on other channels. And I watch channels that are completely unrelated to my interests, but I just like the person seeing the world through that person's eyes, like the guy who eats like there's this one channel and he just eats military rations that are out of
Oh
date
yeah.
50, 60 years. And I just watch that channel because I'm never going to do that, but he's so happy doing that. And so it's fun. So that
Wow.
and that translates, and that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Yeah.
What
For
is your
isolation loops,
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Sorry.
okay. My academic, so I studied musicology and I studied English.
Okay. No, I
Yeah.
teach high school English as a day
Ah,
job. Yeah.
okay.
Well, that's what I like about your work is you have this like this academic background, but it's still like this love of exploration. I think your isolation loops pack is a nice way of you capturing that for everyone.
Yeah, that was like a reaction to a week of basically cancellations where I felt completely helpless because I was in theater in the final week of a theater production, final rehearsals, everything. You the way this works, you go 6 weeks and you meet with people like actors and the directors and the set designers, and everybody builds themselves up into this. Now we're going to perform this. We're going to perform
Yeah.
this like after this like intent, and you're developing the play, and everything is new. And then you hear, okay, no, this is not gonna happen. You get to play the dress rehearsal, and then we're gonna freeze it, and then it will be unfrozen at some point when theaters are back up again. And all this energy was just like gone. So it was really strange to have that kind of emotion, and everybody was really emotional. And I remember we said, and then at the same time, Super Booth was cancelled. Oh, no, it wasn't cancelled, but it was clear that it would be cancelled. Loop was cancelled. Many other events were cancelled. All my live shows, everything. It was 3 days of everything is cancelled, which of
Yeah.
course is financially also tough. So I went home after that dress rehearsal and was like, this is what can I do? I need to do something. I need to do something positive. I need to get back in charge somehow of my own destiny. And I want to, there's not many people, there are many people there that must feel the same. So let's do something that will benefit everybody. So I made something that people have been wishing for me for a long time. That's a sound pack. So, and I only did sound packs on my Patreon for everybody who supports me there. I do like these small sound packs, and which are very much like the Isolation Loop sound pack. But I never did one public. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a fun thing. And I just spent the day and recorded from all the stuff in my studio, like a little bit of something, like a little bit of test equipment, a little bit of treated piano, a little bit of tape, a little bit of band pass filtered weirdness, a little bit of theater scoring loops, just so people would have a mini Hainbach set. So it's like they're with me in the studio. And then I put that online, and yeah, I think it's seen like 8,000 downloads now, which is
Wow.
really crazy. And I was fortunate. So also people like bought it. I think like 1,500 people bought it, which was amazing, and really helped and offset all the financial damage that I took. And I think I loved like all the music that came out of that. So many people started posting, this was made with isolation loops, this was made with isolation loops. And I see that still popping up, and that makes me so happy because this is also a weird one. And I say like, in the end, I think I say like, if you ask me about key or BPM, I don't operate in that
Right. I saw
world.
that. Yeah.
Because yeah, it's not just I try to just unsync, and feeling is basically what I'm going for, and create sync in many different other ways. But I can't remember when the last time was that I said, I'm gonna make a song in 120 BPM. That's never the start point. So it's not in any way like structured, but it has topics. It's not. You have to do a bit of work to make it fit your
Hmm.
own workflow.
Yeah, it's not just kind of like here, stick this in your track, and you got your groove or something. It's
Yeah,
you invite everyone to explore the sounds themselves
yeah. You
and
figure it
interpret
out
them.
yourself and have fun with that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I never. Came up playing guitar and in playing in bands, and we were never saying anything about BPM. I don't know any of the BPMs of the
hmm
songs we used to do, and until I started using a computer or using like sequencers to make
hmm
some music. So to me, that always feels like an unnatural way to go about it too. To set that and then okay, here I am, and just
yeah.
try to fit in.
I always wonder like how many more songs in 120 BPM were made just because it was the preset tempo of the DAW,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think like, isn't it like that's live does 120 BPM? Isn't Cubase does also 120? I think it's the standard for most across the board.
Yeah. I think that's the like magic number that
Yeah, yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, and I probably am, I think I heard that was like considered one of the most danceable BPMs.
hmm
Maybe Billie Jean is in 120.
Billie Jean is slower, I think.
Is it
Billie Jean
slower?
is running at 20. Let me tap that. Yeah, okay, it's close.
It's close.
I sure could be. I tapped like between 116 119. So, but we'd have to check. Maybe it's 120. I don't
Yeah,
know. But I always thought it was a bit slower.
yeah, it could be.
But that could be also just me being preferring slower tempi.
Yeah. It's late at night for you too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's even true, but that's something that's stuck in my head, and I always think about that when
Yeah,
I.
it's certainly not like, I mean, like, I think like the comfortable dance tempo always has so much to do with what space you're in.
Yeah,
Because a
yeah,
120 BPM song in like an R&B club would be pretty fast.
yeah.
So, but it would be very slow in a minimal techno club,
Hmm.
or like excruciatingly slow in a drum and bass session or
Yeah, that
something.
just wouldn't work.
So, but you kind of, yeah, but you can go +8 up and plus and -8 down. So
Hmm.
you can go into many ranges with that. Of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, I guess it fits nicely into the minute.
hmm
It's dividable by 60. So who knows?
Yeah, definitely. It's heartbeat related, I think, also.
Hmm. Well, I for some reason somewhere along the line changed my default to 111. I
Okay.
don't ever remember doing that for a reason. It must have just been the
hmm
way I saved my template. But I
Yeah.
wind up doing a lot of songs in that BPM for
Yeah.
that simple reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like C major is the suggested key in a lot of controllers in the
hmm
beginning.
Yeah, and that will shape how your music is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that a lot because when I pick up a guitar, for instance, it's so much different when I like using Ableton Push a lot, or I'm not much of a keyboard player. So even when I go on a keyboard, it's like speaking a different language almost. I come up with
hmm
different ideas, different approaches. I
hmm
imagine you must get a lot of that with the variety of equipment you use and all the different mediums.
Yeah, yeah. Because I've been exploring a lot of non-musical instruments, a lot like real like instruments that were meant to measure like vibrations on an airplane or on a rocket,
Hmm.
or to look for like the tiniest fluctuations of electrons in a reactor and stuff like that. And those things were not meant to music, but you can make the music in all these beautiful ways, and they sound amazing, but you learn a lot about how little you need sometimes to make music,
Hmm.
because while they make great sounds, they don't want to move to like musical relationships very easily. Like you can't play like trying to like if you want to give me like a nightmare situation, you say, "Oh, this is a really big walk, but can it play Für Elise?" Like if I were to like figure out how to play that, that would be it will be weeks upon weeks to get it to do something that any kid with a few piano lessons can basically
Right.
do in the end.
Well,
So,
you have a whole section of your space that's like test equipment, right? I think
yes. Hmm. Yeah,
you
yeah.
refer to that occasionally. I'm going to my test equipment now.
Yeah, going to the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a little, it's higher than myself, so I need a ladder to step up there.
Uh-huh.
And it's becoming more and more an instrument. That's the big thing I've been working. I mean, this was really fast for me. It's been like a year that I went into that world, and now it's already starting to feel like a full featured instrument.
Hmm.
And I'm building up workflows and matrices and submixers so I can really play it. But it's temperamental. All this stuff
Yeah.
is very old, and things like will work sometimes, sometimes they will not. And there's all these ways and it'll surprise you all the time.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I buy stuff just on a hunch, and then it's sometimes absolute garbage, and I can't get anything out of it, which is sad. But then there's stuff that has like whole like techno sets hidden in it, in a tool that was meant to analyze telephone lines.
Wow.
It's really there's I love the exploration, and I love being sometimes the first person to actually hear what what these things sound like, because
Hmm.
nobody plugged these into an audio amplifier. They
Hmm.
were sent into like an ISDN line or something. So that's really interesting for me.
Well, what was one of the first pieces of gear that you kind of learned that about, that you can take this some sort of test equipment or something totally not intended for musicians and
No,
turn it into something like that? Is there something that sticks out?
yeah, there was the from Hewlett Packard. It was called an error detector, and that was the telecommunications tool for I think like certain ISDN protocols, and I bought it on a hunch. I thought this could be nice. I bought it really cheaply, I think 30 or 40 bucks or something locally. And I turned it on, and it would just play this sad chord. And once you press the button, it would arpeggiate that chord. So it
Hmm.
would go beep, 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 beep. And that was really, I was thinking, this is ridiculous. Why does this thing make this beautiful noise?
Hmm.
Why? So
Yeah.
why does it play musical relationship? And only that, I couldn't get any other sound out of that. But I basically made a track with that by looping it, putting it on tape, and then pitching it up and down on a on a 4-track cassette, and then it turned into a musical viable piece. And that video resonated with many people. I called
Hmm.
it, I think, the saddest drone machine. This is really big thing, and now I've got like two more of that family, like from HP, and each of them is brilliant in its own way. So
Yeah.
one will do these, will be like a complete techno set, which I explored in an installation that it called a landfill totems, where I stacked the test equipment up to 3 totem-like structures, and yeah, that there it came into being. And the other one is just the most weirdest bit crusher you've ever seen.
Hmm.
So it's basically like turning signals on and off, like each bit. You can put a signal in and then turn off each bit separately.
Oh, wow.
Sounds brutal.
So you're just, I love the way you describe it too, as like being sad, and you're able to take these machines and really like kind of humanize them a little bit, where you're pulling
Yeah.
out, just, I just find it interesting, I guess, that in using all kinds of machinery, you're creating such like organic sounding music, and it sounds lively, and it's got so much energy.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. That comes through. I've always been obsessed with an organic or like real sound.
Hmm.
I don't know where that comes from. Maybe just from, I don't know, from my listening habits back when I started making music. And but I it took me, for example, a long time to really like an unfiltered saw wave.
Hmm.
I really thought this is bad, and I couldn't enjoy a lot of music due to that. I couldn't enjoy the Pet Shop Boys, which I really love, due to due to that, because I thought, oh, this just sound, this is radio cheap music, all this brightness. I want
Yeah.
stuff to be like darker and more organic in that 70s kind of feeling. Like I want a synthesizer basically play it like Stevie Wonder played a synthesizer, and not like I don't know. I think yeah, like 80s bands played the synthesizers. Yeah, Europe versus Stevie Wonder, basically,
Yeah.
where you have got a less bright, more filtered, more organic aesthetic. But that has changed. I can enjoy so many different timbres and brightnesses of all kinds of electronic music instruments now that I couldn't before, and had like really visceral reactions to that. I don't like it. But that just happens when you grow older. Either your niche sticks and solidifies, and you think I don't like that. I will only listen to that, or you open up and say it's all part of the richness of the instruments that you can use in your own works and other people use.
I can remember having silly rules as a teenager, sort of like that. I
Yeah.
I I didn't like drum machines. That was like, no, it's
Okay.
got to be, drum machines have no soul type of thing.
Yeah.
But the irony is that like a lot of the music I liked was actually using drum machines. I was
Mm-hmm.
just not smart enough to realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And but having like those sorts of rules, I think, kind of close you off to a lot of possibilities.
Definitely, definitely. It's kind of important to have something like that. I mean, like to get like, I like this. It kind of like defines you, because often when you're young, you use music to define yourself.
Yes.
It's a very good tool to like say I like this and I don't like this, and but then it's also your job, as with everything, basically to get better. I think to try to embrace as much as possible, and not be stuck in the same echo chamber that you built yourself, and yeah, just realize the richness of everything that is there, and not have like stupid rules. No, like I don't listen to pop music, or I don't.
Yeah.
All ambient music sucks, or that's just sounds like my fridge or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like it's almost unfair to yourself, you know. It's like if you decide you will never eat a certain food, and then you just lost out on so
exactly,
much good
exactly.
stuff. So you're going to bring us a little fun here in the coming, like, it'll probably be about a week from the time this comes out, with a super booth, kind of keeping that alive for everybody, because that's something we all look forward to. And it was I think super booth got canceled the day or two before Loop got canceled, and then the next day for me, my job, my school closed down, and that was actually 1 month ago today. Today's April 13th. And it was like everything, like all these things we were looking forward to, are like you said, suddenly gone. But maybe you can tell us about what's happening with Super Booth. You guys are gonna
Yeah.
make this
That
real
was
for us.
another reaction from that week of like cancellations.
Yeah.
Because then on the I think it was on that Saturday that I came home, I was like, this is like there's so much stuff. Like when I learned that Super was also closed, I was like, that affects a lot of people, and I thought all the manufacturers that are new or have just released like 2 or 3 modules, it's mostly just one person operation. They must, yeah, for them this must suck ginormously, because
Yeah.
that was a good way for them to get publicity, and a lot of it. And now that to get contacts to sell their stuff to stores and all that stuff that you do at something like that. So I just tweeted out, hey, anybody want to be in this this thing that anybody want to jump with me on a stream and present their new tools, their new instruments during something around like Super Booth. And so many people reacted positively to that it's gonna be 3 days of live streaming with about 30 manufacturers, and it's gonna be like Super Booth, because people are jumping in and off the stream, and we're basically moving from booth to booth, and there will be random encounters with probably a bunch of people, because now there's so many of people that are on YouTube or making music, and we're all rating each other's streams. So that might also happen. And afterwards, we have a hangout, like with Andreas Schneider will be on there who organized Super Booth, and then there will be Gaz Williams coming by, and Peter Kern from Create Digital Music, and many, many others. And we're just going to hang out, drink a glass of whiskey or non-alcoholic beverage of everyone's choice, and then just talk about what happened during the day, or like talk about all the things that you would basically in a bar after Super Booth.
Yeah.
So that was the whole goal, to have that experience like Super Booth. That's why it's probably like a messy live stream, but also to have that like random encounter kind of stuff, which is the soul of that whole event.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that you don't get to see in the final video that comes out on YouTube that people have put together. You know, we're going over here to this booth, and you know, you get to see the demo and everything. But a lot of the magic at those types of events, these gatherings where all the people in the community essentially are together in one place, there's just so much nice socialization that happens. And I think it's awesome that you're gonna share some of that with with the world.
It's also gonna be madness, I think. Just 3 days of like 8-hour streams. So
But it's madness anyway.
yeah, it's madness anyway. And
Yeah.
I planned this madness. I was also going to be at Loop and present the landfill totems, but so now it's just a thing to do, and it feels like taking back like control of our lives and taking back something to not just react, but to act and try to do something. I'm so happy that, for example, Ben Diffkid, he's gonna be joining us during that stream, which is lovely, and I'm just looking forward to hanging out and seeing all that, like to have like a kind of Super Booth experience, because I always enjoyed every time that I was there.
It's nice to still have that because, I mean, I know it's just been crazy, so isolated and away from everyone. I've done a lot of these podcasts. The volume has gone up a little bit. It's just so nice to spend some time and talk to people.
Definitely.
Ordinarily, it's nice, but especially now, it's extra special. It means a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, I started my own live stream series together with my friend Constantine, just to have, called Single Malt Synthesis, which will be basically like the thing, like the, what do you call it, a banner under which you do this thing? Like the head, it's gonna be Single Malt Synthesis special reserve stream for the Super Bowl thing, and we stream every second Friday and just hang out and talk about synthesizers and talk about the art. And we're doing one. I think this will be past then when this comes out, but that will have been with Scanner, and it's gonna be with Colin Benders, and the title is gonna be Live Streaming, but with an F, because basically they're all like live artists, and now they've moved like to streaming a lot.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot, like, and I'm thinking like gonna be a great conversation to talk about like the whole ramifications of this. So what will happen? When will people, how this whole new streaming world will impact the future?
Right.
And but I started that whole series, the Single Malt Synthesis, just basically to have a bar to meet out with a friend, make it like something easy to hang out and have a drink and talk about what we love doing. So, and we had that project on like in our heads like for 5-6 years, and now we're doing it.
Yeah, nice. You finally got the push you needed, I guess.
Yeah, there's some things about that, because like it's both a necessity, of course, to do more because there's so much being canceled, but there's also an incentive to do stuff. And people, like, I was a bit skeptical about streaming concerts, for example, because I did a few of those and I only saw like the novelty quickly wore off. And I don't think that many people were interested in streaming concerts, but that has changed because that's the only thing that's available.
Yeah.
And we're trying to find inventive ways to go about that now, I think. So that's at least what I'm trying now. And basically, like the stream that I did with my neighbor, I just threw a cable, like the HDMI cable from my camera, which also ran the audio, and she could do visuals, and it was just like a balcony away. So we are really close neighbors.
Yeah.
We could do our take on all these shows or concerts you see from Italy where everybody's singing.
Yeah.
What we didn't think about was that this is Berlin, and it's the weather is a bit different. So it was, when I set up, it was 15 degrees. It was nice and warm and sunny. When I started, it was -3. It was 3 degrees, and we had like ice rain. So
Wow.
I had to
Yeah.
set up an umbrella and play under that. It was still, it was a fun thing, and many viewers, and it was something different.
Hmm.
And now I'm trying to do also to do organize more of these streams, but with other artists. I want to do a new series called No Clocks, because the hardest thing to play with others is syncing.
Yeah.
How can you sync with that? There's no time lag. You see a lot of these faked Zoom videos where like 8 artists are playing, and it's of course not like Sting one, like the Sting one. That's not real. They're not sitting together and playing. They've each recorded their take, and someone professional cuts them all together so it all looks nice. It's a nice lie, but it's completely against the struggle that we're facing when we're trying to do something like that. So I've got this idea for a series called No Clocks, and I already planned a concert with Scanner, which is gonna be performance art combined with experimental electronics and whimsical ideas. And I also want to do like a show with Colin Benders where he plays like this big wall of modular synthesizers every day. So it's like a big Eurorack synthesizer wall. I think it's just part of his system, but it's always massive. And I think, okay, let's play a show where I play my big wall of test equipment. You play your big wall. It's going to be wall to wall.
Nice.
But we've got no clock, and it's going to be, we have to like find your way on a score basically and find ideas how to make it work. And that's going to be, this is like a series that I love doing, because these are all guys that I really respect as artists and like. And now there's a possibility to connect. As you said, it's like you can connect now because the times demanded.
Yeah. Now the kind of no clocks thing and the wall to wall, would that be you guys are gonna kind of jam, but it's the sort of music that doesn't really need to be perfectly in time with each other? Is that the idea?
I think like the idea is basically like you have to work on many things. Like you can't have 2 people doing rhythm
Right.
unless you want chaos.
Uh-huh.
But you can have someone doing atmospheres while the other does rhythms, and that will be perfectly fine. So especially if you think about like I was heavily influenced by what's now called IDM, but used to be called brain dance. Like all the Reflex and Warp records, where you had these hardcore fast break beats and stuff like that, and the music itself and the bass, they would be like halftime. So you had like the hectic element and the completely different tempo of the rest, and I love this layering of tempi. I think that's so crucial to what I do, and you can easily do something like that in that mindset, or both can do atmospheres, then it's fine, and both can do events. But you kind of like have to clue yourselves in. It's not gonna be like because there's like how many seconds, half a second to like a second delay. So you kind of have to think about that. But if you compose it right, so if you think about like, or like verabreden, German English word, to if you talk about it enough up front, like you spend like a solid hour or something or two, like thinking about the piece and what you're gonna do, showing, okay, I can, when you go there, I can go there, and then you probably can, we can probably do something fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried the online jamming thing, and it's been really awkward every time, and I haven't found a way to make it work myself anyway. I was suspicious that some of these live performances I'm seeing are not so live. You know what?
Yeah,
like you
totally.
said.
They're not live. I mean, Jeremy Redwing's recording, he like even made like what it was a real Zoom call, like and messed up one of those videos on with effects, so it really would have looked
was
like
that
if that many
Imagine?
people were on a Zoom stream and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. I think maybe it might have been him that did it too. With kind of took the celebrities singing "Imagine."
No, it wasn't. It wasn't him. That was a different
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
But yeah, okay, that's also okay. That's easy because that's like
That's more.
one says the other thing and another one. It was cringy. It was horrible. But no, when you have like, I mean, the videos with the 9, 10 people,
Yes.
12 people, those are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not quite there yet.
No, we're not quite there. And I wonder how you can get around these problems of shear. It's physics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you would need if you had light speed fast connections, then it would work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like something we deal with on like a Zoom conversation like we're having right now. There
Yeah.
is a little bit of a delay, and it's something it's it's like a skill almost you have to develop to understand that there might be. It's not so much an awkward silence, it's just the time it's taking for you to hear me and then for you to say it and then for me to hear you say what you just said in reply to the thing you just heard me say.
Yeah, I've kind of started not noticing it anymore so much. But I had tried like when I filmed a promo for that stream thingy with the Superboost stream. I tried to do the classic like you say something, I say something with my buddy Constantine, and that was so out of time because of that. Once you try something like that, it goes really out of time. But when just conversation, I don't know. Maybe people will develop different speech patterns, like leaving the end of sentences hanging longer, so the other person can jump in.
Yes.
I'm sure there will be studies about the linguistics effects of Zoom and
Yeah, that would
isolation.
be interesting. I mean, doing this podcast myself, I've noticed it's changed the way I talk, and
Okay.
it's made me talk less. Actually, I find
Yeah.
the less I say, the more people tend to say, and it's
Mhm.
if I let a pause go a little bit longer than I normally would, maybe the person tends to keep going.
Yeah, I learned a lot from these kind of interview situations too, and especially like this. I learned not to give like audible agreement, which is the hardest thing to unlearn. You're
Like
not going like
yeah,
because when you listen to that on the microphone, it just sounds horrible. It's just like, oh no, why doesn't he shut up? Just so that's something you have to change, and then you start changing it. Once you start changing this in these kind of conversations, I guess it changes your normal speech patterns because you get so zoomed in on your voice.
it's going to be weird when I have regular conversations with people again, face to face.
Do you have a microphone voice?
I have a microphone voice.
Yeah, do you have a microphone voice? Do you
Probably a
speak
little bit.
differently when you?
Definitely think I do when I'm doing these shows by myself. When I'm like, "Hi, everybody.
Okay.
Today I wanted to talk to you about something." And I'm not conversing as much. I'm not waiting for replies. Yeah, it becomes a little more like late night radio DJ kind of thing.
Yeah, my voice also drops the same way that it does on the telephone because the mic it sounds better. It just works better. I'm not gonna be like suddenly loud, so it's not like I'm not gonna jump at people and because I tend to I actually like I can have a very loud voice, but in the videos I'm always talking very softly because there's a mic. I don't need to talk loud and it's nicer. But yeah, there was one video that I did where I basically I was talking to a room full of people during a concert. So I was trying to like, my voice goes loud enough that I don't need a microphone for that when it's like, I don't know, 80 people or 100 or something. But when I filmed that, people were like, never do that again. Never be so loud on camera.
That's funny.
I agree. It sounds horrible, but it works for the room where you're in. But on camera, it sounds like horrible.
Well, you do have a sort of calm excited, I think is a good way to put it, maybe, where when you're going through the gear and you're like, no, because like you're really listening to the details, you're paying attention to like the subtle shifts in the harmonics of a distortion, and you're like, listen to that, so it doesn't really make sense to be screaming and yelling over that.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I wish if there is I like to watch Let's Plays, but what turns me off of Let's Plays is all the shouting. So I wonder if there's like a calm streamer who plays like these games. I would love to see like a calm run through of Half-Life Alyx.
Uh-huh.
I tried watching like two different ones. For I think Jacksepticeye and PewDiePie, and both were okay. This is too. I can't handle that. I can't
Yeah.
handle that. It's too much shouting.
I guess you get excited in those moments, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah. I was wondering. I actually like another thing that I did. There's one thing in reaction to this whole thing was I kind of started to overreact and overdo things. So I also set up a Twitch channel to play games, and that's still like something that I really want to do, but just to I'm gonna do when my album is done and when the big stream is done. I want to do a little like what's it called, like holiday projects, and one of these is I'm gonna play all the Amiga games that Chris
oh,
Hülsbeck scored.
oh, okay.
And Chris Hülsbeck, amazing computer musician, and I want to play Turrican, want to play Apudia, and all that stuff on the original, Amiga.
Yeah.
But basically, mostly going to use an emulator because, I sold my Amiga 500, and I don't even know how to stream from that. But maybe I can figure out how to do that. But another thing. But yeah, just want to do that, and I did want to do that on Twitch because I know I will be cursing a lot. And I don't curse on my YouTube channel. I don't like that. And especially because I know people are watching with kids. But on the Twitch channel, I will have to curse. Probably in German. But these games are so hard. So I had to like diversify onto that platform.
Yeah, I think Twitch is a more curse at the screen kind of platform.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
got that going.
Yeah.
So tell me about the albums. That's something you said you're working on. I saw you were doing some YouTube videos too, going over some of like the kind of like philosophical ideas behind your approach a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that's actually I'd planned to do that since last year, to go more into the philosophical sides of music and less the gear orientated side. I sometimes did that in more closely defined techniques videos and in my composing for theater videos, but I really want to talk more about the ideas. These videos are just they're more difficult to film. They require more thought, and that's why I had to like put them off, because when I'm doing scoring work, it's hard to do that also in that depth. But now that I've basically pivoted to mostly that and making Hainbach basically, I now have the time, and so I thought I would make an album with like some new instruments that I got, and then I'm going to document the whole process and talk about while I make the album, how I'm making the album. And it started out with something that was more focused like on the idea, why the album, and then I went very closely about the tools that I use. But I just finished. Let's just have to finish a video. It will be out now, called. It's going to be about contrast, how to achieve contrast in music.
Nice.
And then I'm gonna do one about inspiration, and I'm gonna keep that up basically. And then I'm gonna do technical stuff like releasing the album, working on the artwork, and all that stuff. So it's gonna be the whole process and everything, distribution. But I try to touch bigger topics. In my before, I try to put these in on the side. So when I talk about like how are you gonna use this lock-in amplifier from NASA, but now I put these themes in front and to explore them fully.
Do you find that you get a sort of the tail wagging the dog effect with that, where since you are now have this in mind to make this video, you're going to talk about contrast, does that make you then focus that a little better in your own music, your own creation?
Absolutely, absolutely. In that track that I did, I went, because I used the process of making the track to demonstrate that basically, I went above what I would have usually done in terms of detail, how to craft these things. And it pushes me, of course. It pushes me to do more in that. That's for that contrast video, that was important to really, so I can show some of the stuff that I'm talking about. I can't show everything in that track because I can't show all the principles. I can show them in other tracks, but on that one track, I try to like show difference in how to get contrast in instrumentation, melody, tempo, and all the dynamics, all these things. So I had to use them in the track. But for the one after that, the idea to make that video came from just making that track. I just had that idea. I just started working on something here, like playing a new instrument that I got, and then suddenly this track came into being and felt like I didn't do anything at all. I didn't think about how I was going to do it. It just happened out of that playing with things. And I thought about one of my favorite Pet Shop Boys, again with the Pet Shop Boys quote, and that was when they were asked about inspiration. I think it was Neil Tennant who said, "There's always a new keyboard." And of course, that's one way you get inspiration, but there's so many other ways that, that will work for inspiration to make new ideas. And I mean, I oftentimes say when I'm at the point where I am, inspiration just means showing up in the studio, putting in the time, and then getting out of the studio again. Because that's a professional workflow. You don't wait for inspiration. You just go there, spend time, and then something is done. But then there's these moments where just something you get like a gift. It just happens. And there's the track done. Why? No thinking. No. Just play.
Yeah.
So that's the bit. Now that's how this stuff when it can influence.
That's a great point. I want to highlight something I've learned recently and try to remind myself, because I love showing up and just seeing what happens, having the fun and waiting until I'm really inspired. But those moments, you can't count on them. You really do have to just show up, get to work. And for me, I find, and it seems this way for you, just in the way you seem to have so much fun just exploring your gear and the outside edges of what it's possible of or capable of. But once I get down there and once I start doing it, I love doing this stuff. So you get inspired. It shows up, but you have to really have that kind of professional, like I'm clocking in. I'm going to work now.
Yeah. It really works. I mean, like, even if you read someone like, it's so funny, like when you read there was one thing that Gymnopédie, Satie, Eric Satie wrote about like 8:23, getting out of bed, 9:23, breakfast, 10:51, inspired, 11:47, walk, 12:31, go for dinner, and then like 17 lots of other stuff, and then like 18:14 inspired, and then 19 something you go to have dinner, lunch and dinner, always mix those up. But basically I read that and I was like, oh, I can really vibe with that, because sorry, that was Siri, German Siri. It just jumped in. I'm not calling you.
You had an outtake of that in one of your last videos I saw.
Yeah, she always misunderstands me.
Said the magic
word. She
word.
wants to talk to me.
Well, she's listening.
Sorry. Yeah, she's listening. And that stupid thing is, it's on my main laptop also sometimes. So when I'm in a session and it just says something like, I'm going to say quietly, CV, control voltage, she's going to react. That's what she reacted to in the last video. I was like,
so funny. It is very close.
Yeah, she's like, no. Okay. So I kind of lost the track where I was going. But yeah, so
the scheduled
I can vibe
inspiration.
with the idea of like having specific times where you feel more inspired versus other times. So morning's very good, for example.
Morning's good for me too, and I know that is because that's when I go to work. and now in this last month, I've been doing most of my work for music in the morning because for one, I usually have a lot of time to myself, and for whatever reason, the dogs are happy. They ate their food and they're going to take a nap and they're kind of chill. And that's when I'm used to being up in front of the class, ready to go. So it's been It's definitely my prime time these days. I don't know how that
Hmm.
happened because I used to make my music in the middle of the night when I
Hmm.
was younger, but here I am.
How it changes. I mean, I've always been morning person. I mean, I remember like waking up and when I basically in my student days, I had just a small room and I would wake up, start up the computer, and 6 hours later, I would be freezing and starved and thirsty and was wondering what happened. Ah, I was making music all the time, but I didn't even have put on like a shirt or pants or anything. Just straight up the straight up 6 hours of music.
Nice.
Really crazy. Really like it's also not very healthy behavior, but it was fitting for the time.
Yeah, you
Oh.
can be very unhealthy doing music sometimes. You don't eat,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't go to
yeah.
the bathroom, you don't do anything, and then you look
Yeah.
up and where'd the time
Uh,
go?
Yeah, funnily enough, that's one of the reasons why I'm almost completely analog now. Like I've used digital, of course. I use editing and stuff in there, but I tend to get tendonitis. And
Hmm.
in a bunch of my videos, my earlier videos, my music videos, you see like me wearing like sweatbands
Hmm.
or like protective bands or like have a little uh, the thing you like a heat fluster, something with it emits heat. You put the plaster on there or something. I don't know what that's
Yeah.
called in a band-aid, like a heat band-aid or something.
Hmm.
So, and I've basically shifted to this analog workflow to always be moving. To have like, okay, now I want to record. I have to go to that tape machine over there. Okay,
Yeah.
so now I want to play that thing. Oh, I have to go to that thing and play it over there. So it's not just one interface all the time. And because I tend to get completely lost in music when I make music. And when I'm 6 hours in front of the computer is very bad for you.
Yeah.
But 6 hours spent in a music studio with all that stuff is like, oh, okay, it's always moving. I'm going there, and I have to get up the ladder, and now I have to go down to the floor, and now there, where's the cable? Oh, it's over there. So there's always movement involved, and you don't feel as tired
Yeah.
after that, and it's much better for like the wrists and stuff. So it's really helpful reasons that I went into so much more analog stuff.
Hmm. I do a lot of my stuff standing. This is like a countertop height table, and
Same here.
and the desk here can. I just got one that moves up and down.
Oh, standing
How's,
is super good.
ooh, yeah.
Standing, I got this mat also since I got this mat for standing on.
Hmm.
Perfect.
Okay,
So
a little
no
softer.
fatigue, no fatigue anymore. And I added like both hands. I'm ambidextrous now in editing,
Oh,
which is very
good.
good.
Nice.
That was a skill I taught myself. Helps. It wasn't necessary. Else I would have gotten tendonitis and couldn't work. So
Yeah, you can kind of offload the effort onto the other
exactly. I can
hand.
just
Yeah.
okay. So now I'm going to edit like differently. And the nice thing, of course, I do a ton of video editing, but I never go into a flow state with video editing. It's a very brainy process, and I
Yes.
need to take breaks. It's not a lot like music, where it's like super addictive. Editing on the videos for YouTube, that's very much a you have to be super aware of everything thing.
Yeah, this is what I
For me, at
was
least.
saying to you earlier. I don't remember if we were recording or not at the time, but the video editing, all that is, ugh, yeah,
No.
it's not for me, man. I don't know.
It's kind of like it's its own craft,
It
and
really is.
I
Yeah.
like to take cues from like old movies and watch like how they cut stuff in movies, and I like to I can appreciate the craft of it.
Yeah.
So and I have a certain level of fun with it now. So because I know how good it is, so good it feels to craft something.
Yeah.
And then I see someone like I don't know, like Andrew Huang, who absolutely is a master at that. He's such a
Yeah.
master at editing, and also like in the way he narrates his stories. And then I see something like, okay, this is the level that I would love to be on in regards to that. So I try to get better. But yeah, it's a constant process of learning.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like I'm just insulting the craft half the time. I wanted to maybe I can wrap. I know it's getting late for you. But I
Oh,
wanted to like
didn't notice.
kind of, well, good. That's a good sign, I think, right?
Hmm.
I wanted to just ask you about what are your thoughts on like how do you maintain this just excitement, this like wonderment about your gear and your music making process? It's really, I think, for me, I mean, you are doing a lot of things that I find really interesting with tape and getting in. You're very into the vibe of the sound
Hmm.
and the recording itself. But I just also really love watching you enjoy yourself
Hmm.
doing what you do. Um, and I just any thoughts, any advice, any thing to share with people? Because sometimes making music can be almost torture. You can let it really get to you and frustrate you.
Yes, of course. Yeah. But usually that has to do with the expectations that you set for yourself.
Hmm.
And if you've got like, I mean, I've been trying to work out of genres and stuff like that for the longest time. And that basically just doing whatever I felt like felt right. Because I had my scoring work for a long time. I've been working as a professional composer for 15 years or something, 14 years. And so I had music as work for a long time. So Hainbach was always for me the thing that doesn't need to make any money. That's just free. Just do whatever you want. And now it's turned into something that is my livelihood, which is amazing because there was never I never put any pressure on it financially. And
Hmm.
that I think you can hear that from the music. It's I never try to fulfill like any genre expectations. So, and that's a good way to not stay, to not get frustrated, I think, because in genres, there's so many expectations. And that's where, for example, if you're doing metal, and you often get like, oh, you have to get this guitar and you have to get this effect and it has to sound like this, and you get like, oh, industry standard drum samples, uh, and stuff like that, and people like buy into your insecurities and try to sell you stuff for your insecurities to fix those, and there's a lot of frustration that can stem from just composing in a certain genre or writing in a certain genre, because since the limits are so well defined, uh, you always you're fighting against people with big studios and people with teams and people with sound artists, sound artists, people with sound engineers and mastering engineers, and you're all doing it basically from your home with a bunch of VSTs, a guitar, and maybe a bass, and I don't know what's the addictive drums, still that's still a thing.
Hmm.
But then you try to be like this metal band, try to be like Mastodon in your own home, and then you listen to Mastodon, like, oh, I'm still not there. Of course you're not gonna be there.
Yeah.
But there's one thing to avoid frustration that I found like endlessly inspiring, and that is working with other people,
Hmm.
like trying to collaborate. And this can be as little, like, for example, like, I don't know, maybe record a tape loop, send it over, something like that. Or just sample someone directly from Instagram and then say, hey, I made a track with you. And then, oh, that's nice. And then you can talk back. Just do something like that and communicate with other people and find ways to connect, because that's the easiest way to learn more and the easiest way to, yeah, to get better at what you're doing.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and it also takes you away from yourself a little bit, so you can
exactly.
expand.
And sometimes you yourself can be, or I myself, I know that for myself, I can be a bad echo chamber. You
Hmm.
know, when certain things like start to get amplified more and more and more, and I've learned to avoid these kind of frustrations by knowing myself that, okay, I can't compose on this day. There will only be junk coming out of it, but I can pivot. I can just work on a sound.
Hmm.
I can just record a few sounds that I might use later. I can just try out this thing that I haven't tried, or I can just try out this technique that I haven't tried, but I always wanted to try. I pull the pressure away from like there has to be a finished product. I turn it into experimentation, and the next day, oftentimes, it gets much better. But there are days where simply like making music can, like, if you want to have a goal at the end, it won't work.
Hmm.
And then there's all these tools like that. This is such a multi-layer process. I just realized there's so many answers to that, because I sometimes have to write like a song um, on the train to the city, and I have to write that song in my head with the lyrics, and then I have to get out of the train, go to the rehearsal stage, and then I have to sing that song. and in a way that the 6 or 8 actors and staff are like, oh, this is a cool song, I want to sing that. And
Mm.
that teaches you to be creative and fast so well. Once you do that a bunch of, especially the situations where you do that and you suck and you realize, oh, I need to get better fast, and I need to, yeah, I need to really do this well, that you start employing all these methods to keep yourself constantly in the creative mode.
Mm.
And that's like set times. I think we talked about this thing before about like Eric Satie and that. So have set times and where you just do something. Doesn't have to be like a result, but it just can be just can be a moment. Then um, movable goals. You know, if you fixate too much on one goal, that can like crowd you in and might be bad. And also assumptions. What things have to be.
Mm.
That's with the industry standard stuff. Things have to be like this. And especially like in techno, for example, like all these genres, like they have their sound that has to be like that.
Yeah.
If it's the sound of the air raid siren, if it's the sound of the bass drum, if you don't spend 2 weeks on your kick drum, have you even made techno? There's that kind of assumption
Yeah.
to that, and there's this kind of thing, and people try to convince you that that's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, and you got to wonder if maybe the people that are criticizing you for that should just be making music themselves.
Oftentimes, I mean, like
Yeah.
it's always the relation. How many people, so many people make music, and feedback. Like another good thing that's in the it's feedback system. Find yourself positive feedback systems,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be friends, that can be online communities. And once you find someone there who actually gives you good feedback to what you're doing, like take that person and talk to them often. So because getting good feedback on what you're doing, like feedback that actually helps you, is super rare. So I love good feedback, but that's like a lost art. And many people get so offended when you criticize their stuff. And I get so much music sent into me, like probably like 10 to 15 hours every week to give feedback to, and I can't do that. It's just not possible. But when I sometimes hear something and do something, and I think, oh, this caught my eye, I think, and I see a promise, I see, okay, this is good what you're doing. You're doing good stuff. But you have to do this and this and this, and to make it, give it justice. So, and that involves oftentimes a whole lot more work and a whole lot of redoing, or a whole lot of, okay, let's do something else and development. And sometimes people react really positive. Sometimes they're like, no, I don't want to do that. It's too much work. But, or who are you? And I said, you asked me for feedback. So, but and that really helps in the end.
Yeah.
Feedback and being open to feedback.
Yeah, it can be tough, and
Yeah.
it's always a fine line you are walking, trying to give it and stay constructive. But
Yeah.
you have to be open to it too.
Of course. I love good feedback.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great answer. I appreciate that.
I hope. I
Yeah.
felt like I was rambling for a long time
I think
there.
you hit on a lot of things that I personally run into, and I know a lot of people that I work with run into. And this is something I've been saying this a lot, I feel like, but in this time, this like kind of quarantine type of thing, I've really enjoyed just playing with sound and making music and not hitting the record button and making sure it becomes something all the time. And it's sort of brought me back a little bit to why I got into it in the first place. And that's a great thing to like kind of keep an eye on. And I think, exactly what you said about kind of letting your project be whatever you wanted it to be and not putting any pressure on it is exactly why it's become so successful. It's this sort of
Yeah,
like funny irony, Zen type of thing that
mm-hmm,
happens.
mm-hmm.
I think people pick up on that and it comes across, and you're
Yeah,
enjoying it.
because there's one thing that you can hear, and that's like trying hard.
Hmm.
You can hear trying hard is something you can really hear in
Mm.
everything. You can see hard, like if you're trying too hard on things, you can really there's there's just this kind of like, well, you can hear anxiety
Hmm.
really easy. People are really good at picking that up. So if there's too much of that, like I wanna be, I wanna be, I wanna be, you know,
Yeah.
instead of like I, I just am,
Hmm.
people will pick up on that.
Hmm.
And it's hard to define. Oftentimes, for everyone, it's hard to define who am I, what's my music personality. So, I really loved like these. What's it like? Like in AD&D, what kind of dwarf am I or something like these quizzes, like
Okay. Yeah.
character quizzes.
Yeah.
I really like them when they're out of the way and out of when they're far out. I would love to have like more of these quizzes. What kind of blah 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 am I? Because even though they are oftentimes completely false, you can still get like, okay, that's interesting. That's a good
Uh-huh.
idea about how I am as a musician, how I am as an artist. So, and also you learn more about like the structure and the medium of art about that, because people make these assumptions. This is how it is. So, and these, okay, so this is how this works. Okay. There should be things like these for everything.
Yeah.
Funny made ones. No. But yeah, but what I was getting about is sometimes it's just nice to listen to uh, the machines themselves and not force them to do anything.
Hmm.
I think a keyboard is a valid interface for a synthesizer, but it's also a destructive one. Because when I listen to my function generators and pulse generators and they just oscillate, there's so much beauty there. And they don't sound like the thing that I talked about in the beginning that I hated, like these bright Europe
Hmm.
stabs, where no problem with that anymore now, but it's just an oscillation that's so pure and beautiful. And you pair it with another one, and suddenly you're just listening to the beats between the oscillations. And just there, so many ideas pop up. And if you've got like a keyboard, like a toy piano, or anything that can make like a few melodic notes to that, you hear all these melodies. Like
Hmm.
your brain gets activated, and there's so much in just simple beating oscillators, which you would get totally lost if you tried forcing them to play like a sequence or
Yeah.
to play like a melody.
Hmm.
You just listen to the overtones.
Hmm. Yeah. Once you start doing like our common intervals, there's a
Mm-hmm.
forcing, but I think like that occurred to me when I learned a bit about like how the tones on a phone are made, like the dial tone and the
Mm-hmm.
ringing sound, which is just two sine waves
Yeah.
at a certain interval. It's just amazing because it's such a rich sound, and of course I know that's because I'm used to hearing it and grew up hearing the busy signal.
Mm-hmm.
They have these emotional attachments, so they're not available, or now I'm waiting and they're going to pick up. There's this anticipation, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting that it's just the way the two waves beat together.
Yeah.
They come together and just make that entire feeling, just like that.
No. And I truly believe that one thing that maybe this ties in with the whole inspiration. And I think that one thing that really makes our brain activate our overtones. Like when we know that when you take away the fundamental of a tone and place someone the overtones, they will generate that fundamental. So
Psychologically, you mean?
psychologically,
Yeah.
yeah. So they will. Everybody's able to like, okay, that's the fundamental. So if you're if you have instruments that have a rich tone to them, I mean, like a guitar, like a rich guitar, or like a violin or a synthesizer that will generate overtones that are pleasing and exciting, which oftentimes, like I found in these test equipment stuff, they sound so much better than any like real oscillator, oftentimes, or at least because I let them play more as they are, and that influences my playing style on all other synthesizers too. There is just something there that when you just don't try to push it anywhere. It will give you so much inspiration in the ears. Just whole songs in there. It's the same thing when people sing and then they overlap, and suddenly there's like a third voice, that comes from the beating of two voices together, and you're like, what's that? And then you can use that melody as the next thing and the next thing, and it generates more music, more music, more music. All these overtones that clash together. Oh.
You make me think about when I had as a kid, I had my 4-track tape cassette recorder, and I had a guitar and a mic, and that was it. And you'd record 3 tracks, you'd bounce into the 4th track, and then you'd do it again maybe. And then all of a sudden you're like, what's that instrument? I didn't play that. And it was just the magic of the overtones on the tape that you've just really kind of abused the quality of so bad that suddenly there's like these like
distortions
or these this little 4-track magic just comes out.
Yeah, and you're also forced. You have nothing to look at, so you just listen, and that will make such a difference. You don't go into like if you've got Ableton in front of you, you just look an Excel sheet. Excel, I think it's called Excel sheet. It's like okay, can I make my music now or make my taxis? It always wants you to do something. It wants you to do something different. So, to not look at the music is very helpful in general also.
Yeah, we do a lot of music making with our eyes these days.
Yeah. It's not it has been with eyes a lot of time since notation and stuff like that was invented. So we've been doing that for a long time in many different ways, but it wasn't as absolute or precise as it was, as it is now. So where you can have absolute precision on anything or the illusion of precision. Because everybody thinks because you're also you're losing stuff once you go digital anyway. So
yeah, that's true. And sometimes you see it and you start carving it away, and that's some of those magical overtones that you're talking about. You're like,
exactly. They don't even translate because you've got Nyquist fighting you. You've got like the limits of recording fighting you. And you get weird aliasing stuff, or I don't know. They can be fun, but it's there's always a difference, I think, like from hearing something straight off the analog desk, and then once it's recorded, hearing it played back. It's oftentimes in things like the overtones or like crashes and rides, stuff that's really high. It's usually not in the bass anymore. It's more in that register. But to me, I'm getting older. My ears get worse. So I don't know if I'll be able to distinguish that anymore. But for now, I still can kind of, and I like to tickle my ears in that like 13K and see like what happens in 14K and what will be there. That's a fun world.
Yeah, I wonder if we feel that just as like the sense of touch even. We feel that with bass, obviously, that when you hear like a big system. But I had heard someone describe sound as just a complicated sense of touch because it's just touching the little follicles in your ear in a certain way. So
I feel sound on my fingers.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I really feel that's like my synesthesia. What's it called? Synesthesia?
Synesthesia, right?
Synesthesia. Yeah. It's always funny to like try and I've got these German words, and especially like in music and in science, I've got very many German words that are hard to. I need to translate in my head. No, synesthesia. I got like colors for music, and I got like sense of texture.
Oh wow!
So oftentimes I go like, this sounds like, and then it's like my fingers trying to get back to the thing that I touched. This sounds like.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh.
That's probably a whole other topic, right?
Yeah, it is. But that explains also why my music has so many textures, and why I'm so obsessed with texture as a way of storytelling, or texture as a way of making music.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's. I wouldn't say I feel it, but I am a big fan of hearing like the contrast between the different textures and the way they work, and especially in like a lot of the sound design stuff that I do. I teach the sampling with Ableton Live class at Berkeley online, and it's all about textures half the time with when they
Mm-hmm.
start stretching samples and
Mm-hmm.
pitching them around. It's like, listen to that weird thing that you just found in that sound by pulling it
Mm-hmm.
apart.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, listen, man, it was great talking to you. I knew it would be. I've been looking forward to it for a while. I'm excited to see all your work for Super Booth coming up. That's going to be cool to see, kind of almost like the behind the scenes
Mm-hmm.
stuff go on too. I think that's a cool angle that you're doing. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that a lot, because that the hang is a big part of what I enjoy about those types of
Yeah.
events. And yeah, everyone should check out Isolation Loops. I'll have all this stuff in the show notes for everyone.
Perfect.
Anything else you want to add? To be on the
It's
lookout
been
for.
lovely. And one question: didn't you make like a special pack or something?
I'm working on a pack. Yes, I'll have a free live pack. I'll have that when we release this episode. Yeah, it'll be good. But you know what? I'm actually very happy I didn't go too far with it yet, because talking to you has given me some ideas just when you were speaking about the overtones. And so I want to actually go back to the isolation loops and pay a little more attention to some of that stuff and see if I can't find a way to pull that out. And I really only plan on using 2 to 3 samples. I want to keep
Okay.
your work its own thing too. But my idea is to sort of show a little bit of a direction you can take this stuff. Like
Cool.
a lot of what you have can really just be thrown in a track and it could function on its own, but it could also be thrown into samplers. It could be chopped up. It could be reversed. It could be. So those are the things I want to play around with, but I really am interested now in some of like those harmonic overtones you're talking about. So I want to go into those like test signals and explore those oscillations and the beating.
Yeah, when you do the test equipment stuff, I think there should be. I just think about it, there should be so much full range stuff up top. So when you pitch that down, I think there's going to be crazy stuff happening. And one I used a lot of like bandpass filters already to filter stuff on like there's a bandpass set, and that's where with bandpasses you can really like dive into all these sequences, frequencies, and like emphasize them. And I've got them here on my mixer split on 2 channels, so I can just be. Okay, this is now where I'm going.
That's
It's really crazy to have all these discrete frequencies available to you and search through them. That's bandpass filters are such an acquired taste. I think.
Well,
But,
I think your use right there is a cool way to explore them.
fun.
I haven't done a ton of that, so that sounds like a fun thing to do, to just hone in on those cool fuzzinesses of all our gear and
Yeah,
pull that out.
exactly. Yeah, and see what it tells you in different spaces almost. Oh, wow! Okay. I don't know. So I think like some of these recording thingies mess up with the gain on my audio interface because they wanted to like push it up to a certain level,
Yeah.
So suddenly my gain was set to plus 30 decibels on the Fireface, and I didn't do that.
They have a mind of their own. I know.
Yeah. Good.
Well, thanks so much. So we will send people to Hainbach Music with a K at the end .com.
Yeah.
We got the Bandcamp we'll send people to, and of course the YouTube channel. And I look forward to what you're doing next. It's an exciting time to be a follower of yours. So thanks for that and keeping me entertained and many, many thousands of others.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's been fun talking to you.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like any time at all.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that happens, I think, in a good conversation. I feel the same way. Sorry if I kept you up a little late. I know you're a few hours ahead of
All
me.
good.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for listening and have a great day. So long.
Bye-bye.